I was here last year. I did the Tepta tour with my son. My son started got into cycling and got me riding again. And to be honest, I think with all the things that happened the last 3 or 4 years, for me, I was actually excited that as bad as it got, it needed to get that bad for cycling to change. And when everything kind of exploded, I came to see ASO and just wanted to talk to him about solutions. Because, it's for me, it's not about people who are bad or good. It's about trying to allow riders that don't want to do drugs be able to compete in the Tour de France. And most of the riders they just want a level playing field. And there's a lot of tragedies in cycling too. You got Marco Pantani. Yes, he died because of cocaine, but why was he doing cocaine? He was treated like a criminal. Well, without a positive, he had a hematocrit over 50%, but meanwhile everybody else is getting away with it. And I met him. He's a nice kid. He's a kid. And, there's those stories that I see and other stories that I know about that are from a human side are tragic. And that it shouldn't be that way in cycling. There should be every kid should have a chance to come to Europe like I did and not be forced to get on a team that's, it's part of a forced program. That's the way cycling's been, for quite a few years. We got a rider right now, Davis Finney's son, Taylor Finney. Now, that's a real talent. The guy started cycling. He wins the world championships after 2 years of riding, and he's as good as professionals in the pursuit. It's the way I was when I was 18. And I think it was New York Times I read his interview, but he said, I think he'll be a good one-day racer. I'm like, God, that guy's got a motor. You can't do that without a high VO2 max. You can't do it without the capacity of a Tour de France winner. There's no reason he can't be the next Tour de France winner. But I'd like to make sure that he gets to come over here and doesn't have to face what other riders had to face in the 90s. And riders had to face incredible pressure. I would like to believe I wouldn't have ever done anything, but I couldn't guarantee that because I had such a passion at 18, but I was winning at 18 against professionals. I was competitive against Hinault at 19, so I didn't have to make that choice, and I'm glad I didn't have to make that choice. But I think there's a lot of riders who don't want to make that choice, and what they want is a level playing field, and that they have all the assurance in the world that everybody's doing the maximum. And I believe there are ways you can eliminate 98% of the advantages of drugs. And I think the Tour de France realizes it. I've spent days talking to them, and I'm really optimistic about the future of cycling and the Tour de France.
So
very optimistic.
You've seen things here that make you think that things have changed? They're different?
It's a process, but it's facing the problem. It's like an addict who has a problem. He was an addict, but it takes work, and you might have some setbacks, but the principal thing is that the addict or whoever it is in trouble, they're working on improving themselves to make it better, and that's what's happening with the Tour de France. You can't control every rider. You're always going to maybe have the chance that somebody's positive, but what's changed in the last, when I was racing, if there was doping, there were guys, it was an individual thing, and it was that individual. When you read about the organization of a team putting that pressure, a rider doesn't have a choice. Either you quit the sport or you give in. And that's just it's criminal to me. It shouldn't be that way.
Do you think the internal testing that some of the teams are doing now, the slipstream and high road, is part of the solution? Or do you think
I think it's one of the solutions, but it's got to be part of a bigger independent anti-doping group like WADA, where there's no ties to the sport. There cannot be a tie to a sport who does the doping, because in America there are rumors that I've heard about Wade Exum and even our own athletes. I mean, this is just rumors. I'm not saying I have any